Washington DC butzes under the early morning sun. The politikal ertaut is agitastring under the Trump administration.
Caroline Levitt, 27, the youngest White House press secretary in history, steps out of her car, her eyes blazing with determination. Today she heads to federal court for a public trial addressing abuse of power allegations from the prior Biden administration, a chance for her to openly criticize Joe Biden, whom she and Trump's camp view as America's disaster. Outside the courthouse, Trump supporters hoist banners and chant slogans while police struggle to maintain order amid a wave of opposing protesters. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. Judge John Hargrove, a man in his 60s with silver hair and thin-framed glasses, sits elevated behind the bench, his face cold as stone. Appointed by Biden to safeguard a legacy Karine and Trump's faction are determined to dismantle, Hargrove slams his gavel on the desk, the sharp sound cutting through the room's noise. Court is in session, he declares, his voice deep and commanding. We are here to review abuse of power allegations tied to the previous administration's immigration policies. He glances at Karine, a flicker of displeasure crossing his eyes as she rises, ready to speak. Caroline strides to the podium, her high heels tapping the floor, each step a silent declaration of war. She's not a lawyer or an official witness, but as White House press secretary, she's been invited to represent the Trump administration's stance. Clearing her throat, she locks eyes with Hargrove, then turns to the audience. The Biden administration flung America's borders wide open, she begins, her voice sharp as a blade. They let millions of illegal immigrants flood in, bringing crime, drugs, and burdens for our people. This wasn't policy, it was betrayal.
The courtroom erupts in murmurs.
Some reporters scribble furiously, while others whisper among themselves.
Hargrove banks he is gaflegen, harder.
Miss Levitt, he interrupts, his tone a warning. This is a courtroom, not a soapbox. Stick to the specific allegations.
But Caroline doesn't flinch.
She offers a faint, icy smile, one familiar to anyone who's faced her on TV. I'm speaking the truth, sir, she replies, her voice steady yet defiant. Biden's immigration policies are the root of these allegations, and I won't shy away from pointing that out. Hargrove grips the bench tightly, his eyes narrowing. I'll say it again, Miss Levitt, maintain order and respect this court, he says, his voice dropping like a threat. But Caroline has no intention of backing down. She leans toward the microphone, her voice rising slightly.
Respect?
I respect the American people who've suffered the fallout of the previous administration's disastrous decisions. I'm here to speak for them, not to please anyone in this room. A small cheer erupts from a corner of the audience, a group of Trump supporters who've slipped inside. Hargrove pounds his gavel repeatedly, his face reddening. Silence, he bellows, but the noise only grows as the crowd outside begins chanting, Trump.
Trump. Caroline seizes a moment, locking eyes with Hargrove.
You can bang that gavel all day, but you can't change the truth, she says, her voice cutting like a sword. The Biden administration failed, and people like you, relics of that system, are just trying to prop up a crumbling legacy. The courtroom buzzes louder, a few reporters switching on live cameras. Hargrove rises from his seat, pointing at Caroline. Miss Levitt, this is your final warning, he roars. One more word out of line and I'll take stronger measures. The room holds its breath, cameras trained on her. Caroline grips the podium's edge, takes a deep breath, and decides it's time to land the decisive blow. I'm not here to stay silent, she says, her voice soaring and sharp, slicing through the noise. Joe Biden is a traitor who turned America into a haven for crime and illegal immigration. She pauses for a second, letting her words sink into every corner of the room. He wasn't a president, he was a catastrophic failure, and people like you, Judge Hargrove, are just tools defending that trash legacy.
The courtroom explodes.
Some Trump supporters in the audience leap up, clapping and cheering, while others, mostly left-leaning reporters, shout in protest. Hargrove slams his gavel down repeatedly, the sound booming like gunfire, his face flushed with rage. Enough, he thunders, jumping to his feet and pointing straight at Caroline. Miss Levitt, you've crossed every line of decorum in this court. I hold you in contempt and I fine you $100,000, effective immediately. His voice trembles with fury, but his eyes reveal an intent to make an example of her. This is no place for slandering a former president or anyone else. He sits back down, panting, clutching the gavel as if it's the only thing keeping him grounded. Caroline doesn't waver. She smiles, not a triumphant grin but the cold smirk of a warrior who knows she's just lit a fuse. She pulls her phone from her blazer pocket, switches to live stream mode on X, and holds it up. American people, she says, her voice calm yet powerful, what did you just witness? I'm being fined $100,000 for daring to speak the truth about Joe Biden, a man who sold out this country. This is proof Biden's system is trying to silence us. The courtroom cameras swivel to her, lenses zooming in on her resolute face and the phone broadcasting live. Viewership on X spikes, 10,000, then 50,000 in seconds. The crowd outside hears her words through reporter speakers, and their cheers swell like a tsunami.
Caroline.
Caroline. They scream, pounding on the courthouse glass. Inside, Trump supporters stand and applaud, while a small leftist group boos. You're a wrecker. Hargrove bangs his gavel again, but the noise spirals beyond control. Silence, he yells, his voice straining. I'll have everyone removed if order isn't restored. But no one listens. A reporter from the corner shouts, Miss Levit, will you retract your statement? Caroline turns, staring him down through the live stream lens.
Retract?
I'll never retract the truth, she replies, her voice hard as steel. Hargrove, his face now purple, points to a nearby bailiff. Record the ruling, $100,000, and Miss Levit will pay before leaving. He turns to her, eyes blazing. You think you can turn this court into a circus? I'll show you the cost of arrogance. But Caroline doesn't respond directly. She leans into her phone, speaking to the live stream.
See this?
This is how they protect Biden. Fines, threats, and attempts to crush our voices. But I'm not afraid, and neither should you be. Viewership jumps past 100,000, comments flooding in. Caroline's a hero. Smash Biden's system. Inside, a few lawyers shake their heads, murmuring about the fine's legality. One whispers, $100,000 is excessive.
Hargroves losing IT.
Another reporter turns to a colleague. She just turned this trial into a political battlefield. But Caroline doesn't care about the whispers. She stands tall, her gaze fixed on Hargrove, daring him to do worse. Outside, the pounding on the doors intensifies, and a police officer rushes in to report, Sir, the crowd's getting out of hand. We need backup. Hargrove breathes heavily, his hand trembling as he grips the gavel. He knows he's pushed things too far but can't back down. Miss Levit, he says, his voice dropping into a final threat, you'll pay for this, and not just with money.
Caroline Reises an Eyebro, still live streaming. Pay?
You're the one who'll pay when the American people see this system's true face. She turns to the courtroom audience, lifting her phone higher. Who stands with me? The federal courthouse trembles with shouts and Hargrove's gavel, but Caroline Levit doesn't break eye contact with her live streaming phone. The clock reads 10 a.m., and she's just been fined $100,000 for calling Joe Biden a traitor and catastrophic failure. Hargrove sinks into his chair, face darkening, clutching the gavel as if he wants to smash the room, but Caroline gives him no respite. She raises her phone higher, her voice ringing through its tiny speaker. American people, this is our moment to rise. They fine me $100,000 for speaking the truth, but I'd rather pay than stay silent before this rotten system. Viewership on X surges, 250,000, then 300,000 in seconds. Comments flood in, Caroline's our voice.
Hargroves Biden's lucky.
Outside, Trump supporters hear her through reporters' phones, their chants turning into a ferocious wave.
Tear down the system. Tear down the System. Terror, hammering the glass doors.
Inside, Trump backers rise, fists raised, while leftists yell back, you're a disruptor. Hargrove pounds his gavel relentlessly, voice rasping, order. I demand order.
But no one heeds. The Noise is beyond control.
Caroline turns to Hargrove, eyes defiant. You can fine me, she says, her voice slicing like a knife, but you can't fine all of America. Hundreds of thousands are watching, and they see what you are, a defender of Biden's failed legacy. She emphasizes each word, knowing every sentence fuels the political fire she's igniting. Hargrove points at her, voice shaking with rage. Miss Levit, shut up or I'll have you arrested right here. But the threat only makes her laugh louder, the sound echoing through the live stream.
Arrest me? Go ahead.
You'll just prove me right. Viewership tops 400,000, and a reporter whispers to a colleague, she just made Hargrove the villain live. As Caroline presses on, a few blocks away at the Justice Department headquarters, Pam Bondi sits before a large screen, watching Caroline's live stream with steely eyes. As Attorney General under Trump, Bondi has tracked Hargrove for months. The DOJ has a thick file on him, secret FBI reports showing he illegally fined conservative officials in minor cases, blatantly favoring the left. But they held off acting, lacking a strong public trigger. Now, as Bondi hears Hargrove fine Caroline $100,000 and threaten arrest, she knows the moment has arrived. This is the tipping point, Bondi murmurs, rising from her chair, her black suit exuding authority. She turns to an aide nearby, her voice firm. Get Hargrove's arrest warrant, the one we prepped last week. Call the U.S. Marshals. Tell them to be ready in 5 minutes. The aide nods, dashing out with a phone to his ear. Bondi strides to her desk, opening Hargrove's investigation file, pages detailing dozens of incidents, from unusual fines on conservative activists to dismissing evidence in lawsuits against Biden's administration. He thought he was untouchable, Bondi mutters, flipping to a report of Hargrove fining a Republican lawmaker $50,000 for contempt without clear grounds. That ends today. She grabs her phone, calling the U.S. Marshals commander near the courthouse. Hank, it's Bondi, she says, her voice low but sharp. Hargrove just fined Caroline Levit $100,000 for criticizing Biden and threatened to arrest her. We have an arrest warrant for abuse of power from the investigation. I want your team at the courthouse now. Hank crackles through, we're 3 minutes out, Madam Attorney General. Warrant ready. Bondi glances at the aide returning with a signed paper. Ready, she replies, snapping the file shut.
Move fast.
I'm on my way.
At the courthouse, Caroline reminds at the podium, Livestream unbroken.
They can take my money, she tells viewers, but they can't take our voices. Hargrove and Biden's system are trembling, don't you see?
A reporter shoots. Miss Levit, will you pay the fine? She turns, smirking. Pay it?
I'll frame that receipt like a medal of honor, so everyone sees the cost of truth.
The crowd inside shares, droning Hargrove's gaffel.
He stands again, pointing at the bailiff. Record, if Miss Levit doesn't quiet down, I'll order her arrest. But his words are cut off by the glass doors rattling under the outside crowd's pressure. Bondi, now en route from the DOJ, steps into a black SUV with 3 security agents.
She checks her watch.
3 minutes, she tells the driver, her voice icy.
Hargrove does and know what's coming.
In the car, she opens her phone, watching Caroline's livestream. Viewership passes 500,000, comments demanding justice and Trump's return. Bondi smiles faintly, not from joy, but knowing this is Trump administration's chance to send a loud message. Hargrove dug his own grave fining Caroline, and she'll bury him. At the courthouse, Caroline raises her phone higher, her voice booming to millions of devices.
We don't bow to this system, she shouts.
They can threaten, but we outnumber them. We're stronger.
Hargrove, face scarlet, yells back, Enough, Miss Levit.
But before he can issue another order, the courtroom doors shudder. Caroline stops speaking, turning her head.
Hargrove pauses, Gaffel still in Hand.
All eyes swing to the doors as Pam Bondi strides in, a storm of presence. Trump's attorney general clad in a sharp black suit, her heels striking the wooden floor decisively. Behind her, 4 U.S. Marshals in black uniforms follow, hands on holsters, eyes scanning coldly. In Bondi's hand is a paper, the arrest warrant from the DOJ's covert probe into Hargrove. She stops mid-aisle, her voice low but resonant.
Judge John Hargrove, I'm Pam Bondi, US Attorney General.
The department has evidence of your abuse of power and political bias across multiple cases. Your $100,000 fine on Miss Levit today was the last straw. I'm ordering your arrest, effective immediately. The courtroom freezes for a second, then erupts.
Trump supporters share, leaping up, fists pumping. Justice! Justice!
A few reporters shout, cameras whirring to capture Bondi and Hargrove close-up. Hargrove stands stunned on his bench, gavel still in hand, mouth agape in disbelief. What? He stammers, voice trembling. This is abuse of power. You have no authority to arrest me. But Bondi doesn't budge. She holds up the warrant, light glinting off its bold red seal. We have the authority, she replies, voice like ice. Your files, hundreds of pages, illegal fines on conservatives, bias in Biden lawsuits.
You will gone too far for too long. Caroline, still live streaming, swings her phone to Bondi, eyes alight.
See this? She yells into the mic, justice is here. Biden's system is crumbling before our eyes. Viewership on X tops 600,000, comments flooding.
Bondis a legend. Hargrove's Done.
Outside, the crowd hears through reporter speakers, their cheers morphing into a tidal roar, overpowering police sirens struggling for order.
Inside, leftists protest fiercely.
A lawyer shouts, this breaks the law. But Bondi ignores them, signaling the marshals. Cuff him, she orders, unwavering. 2 marshals step onto the judge's bench, each towering like a wall. Hargrove stumbles back, hands shaking as he drops the gavel. You can't do this, he roars, but panic cracks his voice. I'm a federal judge. I have immunity. One marshal, voice low and steady, responds, Not anymore, sir. There's a warrant. They seize his arms, pulling him from the bench. Hargrove struggles feebly, yelling, This is a political conspiracy. I'll sue you all. But the cuffs snap shut with a sharp, cold click, cutting through the room's chaos. Caroline lifts her phone higher, filming Hargrove's cuffing up close. Justice wins, she cries, voice brimming with triumph.
This is a Biden system piece.
The crowd inside explodes again, Trump supporters clapping wildly, while some leftists rush out, decrying abuse and tyranny. Reporters' cameras shake, one whispering to a colleague, biggest story of the year, Hargrove arrested in court. Bondi stands in the aisle, arms crossed, eyes locked on Hargrove as he's led to the door. You dug your own hole, she says, voice low but audible to him. Today's just harvest day. Hargrove, hands cuffed behind him, twists back to glare at Bondi and Caroline, eyes blazing but powerless. You'll regret this, he hisses, but his voice fades as marshals shove him through the door. His footsteps blend with the cheers outside, and the door slams shut like a final punctuation. Caroline swings the live stream back to herself, breathing hard but holding her cold smile. See that? She tells millions.
They can't stop us.
Hargrove's finished, and this is just the start. Viewership breaches 700,000, comments overflowing.
Caroline is the queen.
Bondi steps closer to Caroline, placing a hand on her shoulder briefly but meaningfully. Good job, she whispers, just loud enough for Caroline to hear. You just gave us the perfect reason. Caroline nods, pausing her live stream for a second to speak privately with Bondi. I know they won't forgive me, but I don't care, she replies, her voice firm. Bondi gives a faint, rare but sharp smile. They won't forgive me either, she says. But we're not here to be forgiven. The courtroom is now a chaotic mess. Outside, the Trump-supporting crowd, now thousands strong, pounds the glass, chanting, Caroline.
Caroline.
A sweat-drenched officer rushes in, yelling into his radio, We've lost control.
The glass is down.
We need riot police now. Police sirens wail in the distance, blending with the crowd's roar into a chaotic symphony. Caroline swings her live stream toward the doors, her voice still sharp despite quickened breaths.
See this?
This is the power of the American people. They won't bow to Biden's system. She raises a hand, rallying through the screen.
Stay calm, but don't stay silent.
We're winning. Viewership breaches 1 million, comments flooding. Caroline's a legend. The system's terrified. A reporter inside shouts, Miss Levit, what do you think of Bondi arresting Hargrove? Caroline turns, smirking. I think it's long overdue. Hargrove was a relic of a failed era, and today we swept him away. While Caroline keeps live streaming, Bondi steps near the doors, facing the crowd through the broken glass.
Man war wegen a Trump 2025 Banner yells. Miss Bondi, Jure a Hero.
She nods curtly, then turns to a nearby officer.
Hold them back.
I don't want violence, but I don't want them silenced either, she commands, her voice low but firm. Outside, leftist protesters emerge, hoisting defend the rule of law signs and clashing with Trump's side. Bottles shatter, and tear gas smoke begins to drift as riot police arrive. Just then, Caroline's phone buzzes mid-live stream. She glances at the screen, an X notification. Trump just tweeted. She laughs, showing it to her viewers. Listen up, she says, brimming with excitement. President Trump just wrote, Caroline and Pam make me proud. This is America fighting for freedom.
The room explodes again, shares droning out the sirens outside.
A supporter yells, Trump knows everything. Caroline nods, returning to the live stream.
That's right.
The president's watching, and he's with us. Hargrove's lost, Biden's lost. This is our win. But not everyone agrees. Left-leaning reporters swarm Bondi, shouting questions. Miss Bondi, what evidence do you have to arrest Hargrove? Is this political revenge?
Bondi turns, Herr Gase like a blade. Evidence?
The DOJ has hundreds of pages on Hargrove's abuses, illegal fines, political bias. Today was the breaking point.
She pauses, voice dropping. Revenge?
No, this is justice. A reporter presses, but arresting him in court, how's that justified?
Bondi smirks.
When a judge oversteps, we don't wait. We act. The chaos inside now spills across the courthouse. A security officer yells, "Everyone sit down." But no one listens. Spectators from both sides lunge into arguments, one man nearly punching another before being dragged back.
Caroline steps off the podium, still live streaming, approaching Bondi.
"Madam Attorney General," she says, voice carrying through the phone, "the people want to know what's next." Bondi turns, staring into Caroline's lens. "Next?" She replies, voice cold.
Clean the system. Hargrove's not the only one.
"We'll find and remove every remnant of that rotten setup." Tear gas smoke slowly clears outside the federal courthouse as riot police push the crowd back, but the aftershocks of Judge John Hargrove's arrest still rattle Washington, D.C. It's been a day since Pam Bondi cuffed him, and America hasn't recovered from the shock. Caroline Levitt stands in the White House briefing room, camera flashes popping as she steps to the podium, her navy blazer as crisp as when she faced Hargrove. Before her are dozens of reporters, but her eyes fix on the framed $100,000 fine receipt, now hung on the wall like a Medal of Honor. She's ready to claim victory. "Yesterday," Caroline begins, voice ringing through the mic, "they wanted me silent. They fined me $100,000 for daring to speak the truth about Joe Biden, a man who sold out America. But I made them silent." The reporters stir, some raising hands to question, but she gestures for them to wait. Judge Hargrove was a symbol of the corrupt system Biden left behind. Yesterday, thanks to Attorney General Pam Bondi, he was hauled off his bench in handcuffs. And that's just the start. Applause erupts from Trump supporters at the room's back, some holding phones live streaming her reaction on X. At the DOJ headquarters, Bondi sits in her office, watching Caroline's briefing on a large screen. Before her is a stack of new files, lists of other judges suspected of abuse and political bias, like Hargrove. After the arrest, she launched the Justice Cleanup campaign this morning, vowing to purge Biden's system remnants from the legal framework. A DOJ press release details Hargrove's indefinitely suspended, awaiting trial for abuse of power and charges tied to dozens of past cases.
Bondi smirks, nodding to an aide.
"Send this list to the FBI. I want results by next week," she orders, voice cool but certain. Back at the briefing, Caroline holds up the framed fine receipt, flashes popping relentlessly. "This isn't a loss," she says, voice brimming with pride. "This is our win, mine, President Trump's, and the millions of Americans who watched yesterday's live stream." She pauses, staring into the room's central camera. Over 1.5 million people saw Hargrove fall, and they know who's on their side. A Fox News reporter shouts, "Miss Levitt, will you pay the fine?" Caroline laughs, setting the receipt down.
Pay? No.
"I'll keep it to remind everyone the cost of truth and the price the system pays for trying to silence us." Outside the briefing room, Trump supporters gather on Pennsylvania Avenue, waving Caroline, voice of freedom, and Bondi, true justice signs. Right-wing media hail the arrest as a historic win. A Breitbart piece declares, Caroline and Bondi crushed Biden's legacy in 7 minutes. Meanwhile, the left lashes back. MSNBC runs a headline, Bondi's abuse judge arrests tax rule of law. Leftist lawyers file an emergency suit in higher courts, alleging Bondi breached procedure, but it stalled for lack of a presiding judge, an unintended fallout from Hargrove's case. Caroline presses on with the briefing, her voice a war cry. Yesterday, President Trump tweeted, "Caroline and Pam make me proud." That's not just praise, it's a call. We won't stop until every corner of this system is cleaned. She points to the receipt. "They wanted me scared, but I'm not, and neither should you be. We won this round, and we'll keep winning." Applause roars again, drowning a leftist reporter's shout, "Aren't you worried about retaliation?" Caroline smirks, locking eyes with him.
Retaliation? Let them try.
"I'm ready, and so is this administration." At the DOJ, Bondi switches off the screen, turning to her team. "Hargrove was the start," she says, voice low but sharp. "We've got 12 more judges. I want their files on my desk by morning." An aide nods, exiting briskly. Bondi grabs her phone, texting Caroline, "Great work. Keep the pressure on." She knows Hargrove's arrest isn't just a personal win, it's a signal nationwide that Trump's administration won't tolerate what they call the old system. Back at the White House, Caroline wraps the briefing amid applause and flashes. She steps off the podium, fine receipt in hand, and heads to her office. On her desk, her phone lights up with Bondi's message. She smiles, placing the receipt beside a framed photo of her with Trump on the campaign trail. "They thought they could stop us," she whispers to herself, "but they don't know how strong we are." She opens X, seeing her followers surge over 5 million since yesterday.
A top-comment reads, Caroline, Jure our hero.
She nods, knowing this victory isn't just hers, it's the Trump movement's. A week after Hargrove's arrest, Washington, D.C. still simmers, but Caroline Levitt has become an untouchable conservative icon. From her White House press secretary office, she gazes at the city through the window, sunlight glinting off the framed $100,000 fine receipt on the wall, the mark of a battle that changed everything. Hargrove, suspended, awaiting trial. And Pam Bondi's Justice Cleanup campaign expands, targeting dozens more judges accused of bias. Right-wing media crown her voice of freedom, with millions on X hailing her as the spearhead against Biden's legacy. An online post calls her the young woman who toppled the system with truth. The left still condemns, labeling the arrest authoritarian, but their voices are drowned by a swelling wave of support. Trump tweets again, Caroline is the future.
We won't stop.
She smiles reading it, knowing her place in the administration is now more secure than ever. Caroline turns to her desk, eyes blazing with resolve. They haven't seen anything yet, she whispers, hand brushing her phone, ready for the next fight. Hargrove was just the first step. She and Bondi have ushered in a new era where the old system has no place. From here, she'll continue as press secretary, not just speaking for Trump but for a whole movement. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. The story of Caroline Levitt's $100,000 fine for insulting Joe Biden and Pam Bondi's arrest of Judge Hargrove deeply reflects America's political polarization today, where public disputes aren't just opinions but battlegrounds for power. In reality, the nation faces a divide between conservative and liberal factions, much like the clash of Trump supporters and leftist protesters outside the courthouse in the tale. Caroline's X livestream drawing millions recalls modern social media revolutions, where Twitter and other platforms amplify individual voices, turning a legal event into a national movement in minutes. Bondi's move, backed by prior investigations into Hargrove's abuses, mirrors growing distrust in the judiciary, as many Americans see judges swayed by politics, a hot topic in current Supreme Court debates. The lesson here is, in a polarized society, conviction and tech-savvy